Hello there friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you that saw my most recent Scrapbook Pal haul video, I got this Peek-a-Boo Fair die and stamp set. This is from Avery Elle. It's new and I could not wait to ink it up. So there's the matching die and this thing is just glorious. So I stamped it out a bunch of times and I stamped out the unicorn a bunch of times too, and so we're just to save some time, we're going to get right into the coloring. I'm going to color the Ferris wheel pretty similar. One of them is going to be a little darker, one of them is going to be lighter, because I'm going to make 3 cards. That's why I stamped these out so many times. I figured if I was going to get to stamping, I was going to make 3 cards out of this baby. So my first color combo here is the C's. I'm going to use C1, then I'm going to move up to C4 here in a second. And what I'm doing right now is just putting a wash down. And at this point, I'm actually realizing that my Copic marker needs to be refilled. So I'm going to take a second, fill it up. And then as you can tell here as I color back over it, that baby's nice and juicy now. So I'll put down that wash, and I like to do the wash because it just kind of gives a little bit of a base for your colors to go on, and then it helps them to blend a little bit better. And then I'm coming in with the C4, not going all the way in because this is, in my mind, it is a metal Ferris wheel. So it's going to have some light reflection. And so I wanted the centers to be a little bit lighter. And I'm using a flicking motion, as you can tell. And then I'm going to come in with some C6. And then I'm actually not going to go all the way to the edge with the C6 because I want to give the illusion that this is a rounded image, because it would be. And then we'll work backwards from there. If you've ever seen me do any Copic coloring like this before, I like to go from lightest to darkest and then go back down to my lightest again. So here we are coming in with our mid-tone, blending that out just a little bit. And then once I'm happy with that, we're going to come back in with that lightest color, which is the C1, and we'll blend it even more. So then it just gives this a little bit of an illusion that it's, you know, refracting some light or reflecting light, whatever you want to call it. And then also it gives the illusion that it's round, which is cool. We jumped right in with the coloring, and I never even mentioned I am coloring on Express It cardstock, and all the images were stamped out with Memento Tuxedo black ink. And all the color combos that I show you, like this yellow, if you see me use yellow again, it's going to be the same Y00 and Y02 for all of them. And then I will just continue to keep coloring in that manner. So here we are going to color all the unicorn, but I'm going to color them all a little bit differently. I don't know if any of you remember My Little Pony. I don't know how you couldn't, but when I was growing up, they were a big, big deal. And I loved My Little Pony. Loved, loved, loved My Little Pony. I had enough of them to fit into like this little plastic carrying case. It was like supposed to be a stable, and then when I got a few more, I'd just kind of shove them in there. So I decided I didn't want to color all these unicorn the same color. So I've got the first one there. I do end up coloring, I think, 2 or 3 of them as a traditional, like the white unicorn. But then I'm going to color a blue, because one of my favorite, I don't even remember her name, but she was like a blue color, and she had wings. She was like a Pegasus type unicorn, and she was the coolest. So yeah, I loved My Little Pony. I think when they started coming back in when my daughter was younger, but they didn't have the bigger one. Well, I think they did have some of the bigger ones, but they mostly had these little things. And my daughter was obsessed with little stuff anyway, so she was all over those tiny little My Little Pony. And yeah, so it just brought back a lot of memories. And then seeing this little unicorn, I knew I had to color her like some of my favorite My Little Pony that I had growing up. And yeah, so it was... I just had fun coloring these, just sticking with the same color palette for the entire time, you know, so all the yellows are the same, the pinks are the same, the blues are the same, and I even bring in some blue violet, almost like a purple, I guess, a blue and a blue violet later on. I did decide I wanted her little muzzle to be a little bit darker there, so I added that pink. So for this first bumper car, I'm coloring it with the blues, and I love how this set gives you the opportunity to add movement to your cards. So I'm going to bring in some action wobblers. I just could not resist using action wobblers with some of these. I mean, there's even a separate die so that you can cut out the Ferris wheel cars separately as well. So if you wanted those to be able to tip back and forth, or like I said, use an action wobbler on them, you can absolutely do that. And I thought that was just so neat. So I do end up stamping out another Ferris wheel and just coloring the cars and then cutting those out with that special dye that goes with that. All right, I'm just adding some more shading to the whole bumper car. This is mostly supposed to be a blue bumper car. I have one other bumper car that I end up coloring obviously a little bit differently. And I'm not going to show you all of the coloring because it's basically the same. So what you see here is going to be the same thing for the others. I will show you what I do with the purple, and I screwed up here. One of the things you have to remember is just because your cap looks lighter than the other cap you may be using, it doesn't mean that the color itself is actually lighter than the other one. So I had those two Copics there. It was the BV, I forget which numbers they were, BV63 and B63 or something like that. And the B was supposed to be lighter than the BV, but I put down the BV first, and so you can't come in with a lighter color now. So basically what I'm doing is just trying to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back in once I feel like that is dry, and I'll come back in with that BV just to try and darken it up just a little bit. But typically I would have come in with the B first and then gone in with the BV over the top of that. So yeah, we're just kind of coloring, waiting for that to dry. And then here's where I'll come in with that darker. It's BV34, I believe. So there are all the unicorn, all colored. I did different colors for all of them. And then I'm going to come in with the matching dyes and tack all of those down using some washi tape. That's just what I have. It's a low tack tape, but I also try to be very careful when I am using washi tape. I try not to have it go over the top of my images themselves because that washi tape has been known to tear the paper a little bit. So I try to keep it in between the die and just on the die itself rather than over the tops of the images at all. So we'll just tack all those down, and then yeah, it takes a little bit of time to do all those, but I'm so happy with having all those little unicorn ready to go. And like I said, I didn't color all of them, so I'm going to save the rest of those that I had stamped. And I'm just going to save those and put those aside with my stamp set. Now we're going to work on some backgrounds. So I'm going to make a couple backgrounds. And both of those pieces of paper are some Arteza Expert watercolor paper. I am pulling out my Distress Oxide mini ink blending tool sponges. And I just used the 2x2 Simple Stories holder. That first color that I'm using is Spun Sugar, and I have these panels cut down to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm going to take that Spun Sugar and I'm going to bring it almost all the way down. So it gets a little bit lighter towards the bottom, almost into the white, so we're going with an ombre look here. And then I'm going to come in with that worn lipstick and then start once again, and I'm going really heavy-handed at the top, and then I'll just work that all the way down till I get a good blend into that Spun Sugar. But I want it to be really, really deep up top. So basically we're going to have 3 different backgrounds for our 3 different cards. And I'm doing this on my Waffle Flower Media Mat because I love how that'll just hold the paper in place. For my second background, I'm taking some tumbled glass, spritzing that with some water, and then putting my paper right into the tumbled glass. I'm obviously doing a little bit of ink smushing. I know you guys are shocked. And then I'm going to come in with a different product here. I am going to bring in the Brutus Monroe. It's the Aqua Pigment of the month, and this one's called Anemone. And it has a little bit of shimmer to it. And instead of cleaning off my mat, I decided I'd just stick that right into the tumbled glass and see what happens. So I'll spritz that with some water and then just kind of stick my paper down into it. And then I love how they're reacting together. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to heat set this in between. And then I'm going to, once it's dry, I'll pick up more of that ink that's laying on the mat. But this is the fun of ink smushing, is you can get a lot of texture in a background, and it doesn't take a lot of color either, really. So this is basically just 2 colors. You could do it even just with the one, but here I am adding more texture, and it's fun because you get all these little bumps, and then it's going to look like a sky. I love that. And so obviously I'm going to put one of my Ferris wheels on this one for sure. All right, so there's our 2 backgrounds. And I'm going to flick this one with some water because, you know, it's Distress Oxides and they react with the water. And then I decide I want to bring in some more Brutus Monroe Aqua Pigments. And this one is going to be the color Pearl. It's basically almost like a clear, but it has lots of shimmer to it. So I'm going to splatter that all over that background. And then you can kind of see the shimmer. I'll bring my flashlight in here in a second so that you have an idea of how that actually is. So here's this one. I'm trying to show you the shimmer from the Anemone Aqua pigment, and there's my flashlight kind of showing you some of that sparkle. I love how that looks. It's subtle, but it's so pretty. And then here we go with this one. Super subtle and pretty as well. And then here's our third background. Now this one came from a gel print that I had made the other day, and I will link that video down below. This is when I was doing some gel prints, and Stephanie Beckman came up with the great idea of, oh, your black backgrounds would be so good for some galaxy skies. And I thought, or night skies, and I thought, boy, that's a great idea. So she gets the credit for this one. I was just going to stick those off to the side and try to think of something to do with them later, but she's right on with that. So I'm going to grab my distress paint in the color Picket Fences. I'll put that on my stamp block, and then I am going to splatter that all over the background. So obviously this is going to be a very abstract background. If you'd like to see how I originally made it, like I said, I will have that video linked down below, and then you can go and check that out. But look at that. So there's that iridescent paint on that background with some splatter. And so now we have our three backgrounds. We're going to start assembling everything. I love how the peekaboos can all basically go together, but my point with this one was I just wanted to use the unicorn. You could go crazy with any of the peekaboos that you have, and you could add them to the little bumper cars or the Ferris wheel, which is so cool. But obviously you only need the one set because it has the unicorn in it. But it would be fun to mix and match. You know, I think they've got some that have bears and dogs and cats, and they also have some that have mythical creatures like I think there's a sloth too. Not that that's a mythical creature, but they have like a dragon. And then they came out with a new one, the safari or jungle pals, which is so fun. All right, and here I am adding an action wobbler to the back of it, because if you're gonna have a bumper car, you might as well have some action, some movement, like I said earlier. So that's gonna be fun there. Now, if I'd been thinking, I would have stamped my sentiment first, but this just goes to show how nice and flat those action wobblers get. I'm putting this into my mini Misti, and I'm going to ink up my sentiment with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and then I'll just stamp down my sentiment, which says bumping by to say hi. And that's how awesome those action wobblers are. So you don't have to worry about mailing these off. They go super flat. All right, then I will start assembling the rest of the pieces. But I go ahead and put this one on my card base because I already knew that what I wanted to do on the inside was just add more to it. I already had an extra piece that I wanted to add to it. But the other ones I don't assemble to the card bases right away once I'm done with the card fronts, because I want to do some stamping on the inside. So I'm going to glue down this particular Ferris wheel to that daytime sky. And I love how it just looks like clouds in the background. It's so fun. And I'm going to adhere this little guy. So this is what I was talking about. Now, it did cut out, it did leave a little bit of a border, but I didn't like the border, so I went ahead and cut the entire car out. And then I'm going to add his little hooves. And one of them I'm going to have holding this cotton candy, or it could be an ice cream cone, I suppose. Whatever you want it to be. But I love that you can add little things to it. How fun is that? It's just, now I want to get all the Peek-a-Boo pals. And this craze started because I was watching Carrie Rhodes. She did some really cute things with those Peek-a-Boo pals. All right, so I'm stamping out my sentiment. Don't like how that first one came, so I'm going to stamp it a second time. And then I'll put another action wobbler on this one. I'm putting it right on the car this time, peeling off the paper, and then I'll stick down my little unicorn. So now she's up there. That would be terrifying if you're up there and you're moving around that much, but there she is. I'm going to attach down my sentiment with some liquid glue, and then I'll trim off all of the excess from this. And then I'll set that off to the side and start working on my last background, or assembling my last piece. So here I have another Ferris wheel. I'm not going to add any action wobblers. I'm going to add 3 different unicorn to this one. So I'll add that little purple guy down there, the little white one right there. And then I'll add the yellow one to the top. And then I'll add even their little, I'm not going to show you all of that because it's basically the same. A couple of them will be holding cotton candy, and then one will just be holding on to the car. But I'll use that same liquid glue. This is the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. And I'm just going to tack that whole thing down. I could have used foam tape, but that would have been a lot of extra work that might have been really cool, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I didn't do that. And then I'm going to add a sentiment to that upper right hand corner as well, just using that same liquid glue. And then I'll turn that over and trim off the excess. And when I'm happy with that, we will start stamping on the insides of our cards. All right, so two of the insides are going to be the exact same. I'm going to take the Ferris wheel and I am going to just stick that in that lower left-hand corner. I'm really enjoying actually doing the entire inside of the card. I just think it's so cool to not just have it be on the one right-hand side. I mean, I will still do that on occasion, but when you have giant stamps like this, it's just so cool. So I'm inking this up with some worn lipstick, Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to stamp that up a couple times. And like I said, the two Ferris wheel cards will have this same inside. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment on the inside that says, "Have a wheelie, happy birthday." I'm not actually going to show you the assembly of the final card because that one just is a put together of another of the Peek-a-Boo pals. So I'll just show you what that one looks like at the end. And so here we are assembling our two Ferris wheel cards. And then I am going to add some embellishments on all of my cards here in just a second. So I'm loving how these are coming together. All right, so now that everything is assembled, let's do some embellishing. These sequins are by Studio, and I know they're not available anymore. It's just something I had in my stash. And I'm putting these down using some Nuvo drops in the color White Blizzard. So they're basically clear, but they have glitter in them. And then a couple of those sequins I actually did cut down, so it looks like they are either stuck behind the paper or they're coming off of the paper, which is kind of cool. And then I will, I'm doing like a double here. I put the White Blizzard down, I stick the sequin down on top of it, and then I'm going to put the White Blizzard right on top of it. So it'll make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. And now these sequins that I'm using are called Groovy by Simon Says Stamp. And actually, it wasn't necessary for me to use the White Blizzard because there is no hole in the center. I could have just gone to my liquid glue, but since I already had that White Blizzard in my hands, I went ahead and just adhered down those sequins using that same White Blizzard. And I'm just having fun tacking these down. They're really cool. They're all these iridescent colors, and then they kind of shift color, you know, looking at the light a little bit, which is kind of fun. And I'm just, like I said, putting down a few here and there. And then I'm going to move on to my pink background, my bumper car background. Now, the White Blizzard, I put down just a few of the drops, and I'm going to put down some of the sequins, but then I decide to go in and just add a few drops of the White Blizzard. And it will, because these are Distress Oxides, it will change the color of the White Blizzard that I did put down, which is, I don't really mind. I don't care. I just wanted to have something down. So I'm just going to put a few more drops down. I just felt like it needed a little something extra. And then that is actually going to finish off all of our cards. So check this one out. I'm going to show you the inside of it. I didn't show you that I did it, but there it is. There's the inside. And there's our front of that one. Here we have this one. And there's the inside as well. And then our final one that uses that gel plate background. There it is, all beautiful and iridescent, nighttime sky. And there's the inside of that one. So there you have it, all three cards using that fun stamp set. And there's a lot more possibilities with it. So I'm excited. I know I'll continue to use it. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button, and I would love it if you subscribed. I typically have at least 3 videos a week, sometimes more depending on what's going on, but I'd love to have you around. And so like I said, like this video if you liked it, subscribe, and as always, I appreciate all the love and support y'all give, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye everybody.